All right, welcome back to Personal Best Outdoors. Today, got a little bit of a different video. Center serving. We're going to replace one. It's time to replace it on my wife's bow. The big reason we're doing this, I'll show you. But a lot of people are really quick to just saying, hey, I need new strings because I've got an end serving that wore out or a center serving or whatever. Strings, there's a time and a place for needing them. We'll probably do a video talking about care, as to when you should need to wax your strings, the common causes that would need or necessitate you to be able to wax your strings, extreme weather conditions, etc., etc. Some people definitely overwax, which is just as bad of a problem as underwaxing. In this circumstance, the string is properly waxed. Everything's been good. Obviously, pretty up there with making sure that I'm maintaining mine and my wife's equipment. But sometimes you'll notice that there's like some separation. Okay, so if you go to like knock your arrow, of course you've got your D-loop on there. You'll notice sometimes this GoPro is really pissing me off. But anyway, you'll notice sometimes your serving will start to separate. A good idea at that point maybe to think about replacing them, or if it splits completely. Now this is a pretty simple, straightforward thing to do. You're going to see a serving jig that I'm going to be using to actually hold the string out and at tension. You can serve a string on your bow. I've done it before. I also too, because I can weld, prior to doing this I welded like a couple nails on my bench vise. And you can kind of, wrap the string around and kind of anchor it off, and then you can run your vise out to get things real tight. Having a nice tight string when you go to do this is definitely going to make your job substantially easier, but it's not entirely necessary to have the top dollar equipment to make this or the only way that you can do that, basically. So get you guys set up. I'm going to show you why we're going to be replacing her center serving, and we will get right into it. So stay tuned. Alright, so the biggest reason we're going to be doing this is we're getting her set up, getting ready for hunting season. She's been shooting this bow. We've got her arrows built, but if you notice, we'll knock one of these arrows on here. You can see there's like a little bit of delamination. Stuff's kind of split out. It's not really a super big deal yet, but watch this. Now watch when I go to pull this arrow off. You see how much deflection is in that string? It takes a pretty large amount of force to kind of get that off there. You don't want that, okay? These zebra strings that come stock on these Matthews, they're junk to begin with, or I'm not a fan of them. I shouldn't say that they're junk. That wouldn't be fair to say to zebra, but they're definitely not like a gas bowstring or something. Their servings, they use a much thicker serving material, and so what I'm after for her is basically what I have on my bow. It kind of knocks off there pretty easy. So what I have here, okay, so we have some BCY 3D. The stuff that I like using is like 0.014, 0.016. This is going to be the 16 thousandths, so pretty good stuff. We'll get this string off here, and we will get it set up in the serving jig, and let's get going with that process. Alright, so some things you'll need for this. A decent, blade, a paper clip. This is to prevent your string from twisting around a bunch before we get it put on the jig, because we have everything set up the way that we like it. We don't want her string to basically start unraveling. So I'm going to keep that paper clip aside. We'll go ahead and pull her quiver off of there, and we will start pressing the bow. So just like in some of the other videos you guys have seen, like press it moderately. You don't need to go like super carried away with it or anything. When you've been able to lift the string, probably about 4 inches or so, you should be plenty good. And then we will take it off on this side. Now make sure not to let this twist around on you a bunch. So what I do is I go ahead and just keep holding it while I'm working my way down to the other side of the bow. And pop that guy off there. Just keep your eye on it so it doesn't twist around a bunch. And now what I like doing, and this is where the paper clip comes in handy, so I don't let these loops twist 180 or 360 or anything, but I just kind of go ahead and set them next to each other. and then we will run this paper clip through there. And all that means is, you know, now this thing can't untwist or unravel on you, and then we can set that aside. But I will take the drawboard off and go ahead and put the jig on here. I kind of leave this out a little bit. Let me make sure you guys can see what I'm actually doing here. There we go. This jig's pretty cool. Picked it up from Last Chance Archery. Pretty relatively straightforward and easy to use, but basically as you kind of wind this down, it tightens this, so it kind of pulls the lower end of these together and it causes this to open up. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure this is kind of slid in more for right now, just because we want to put plenty of tension on there. This guy should be retracting. There we go. This is kind of how it operates. I just kind of come all the way in, even though it's not really like super necessary to go that far in. And then we will take our string, and keep in mind we don't want these to untwist or unravel on us, so you're going to kind of have to keep a finger on them now that we've got that paper clip off there. And I like to just kind of hang this. I'll just hold on to it for now because I'm kind of running out of hands, but kind of spin this guy around until you can find the groove that's right here. Okay, and we'll put the string there, and forgot to pull that pin out. There's a pin that's on the other side. Make sure that you do that. Put the string here, and slide the pin in there. That keeps everything in place. And then we will do the same thing on this end. Just kind of run some of this slack out of the way here. I'll show you how to deal with all of that here in a second. For now, we just want to get the string on here without it twisting up or untwisting a bunch on us. Okay, so we got it on both sides. Now, what they tell you to do is kind of tighten this as much as you can by hand. I don't really see like a major need to get super carried away with it, because as we kind of wind this out, that's when things are really going to cinch down on us. But I'll kind of try to get this to about the halfway point because we're replacing the center serving. There just went the knob for my serving jig. And same thing here, just kind of get that relatively finger tight. Now, I like to give myself a little bit of wiggle room and stuff there, because sometimes getting that serving jig in there could be a little bit difficult. Where did I put, oh, there it is. You kind of sometimes have to go to just like the last hole or whatever. And then what I do is before I put like stupid amounts of tension on there, let's just kind of make sure everything looks like it's doing all right. Now, there's some debate about whether or not you need to pull these weights off there. I haven't ever taken them off. I haven't really had a problem. I have had an issue if I get my peep around on the back side of one of these, tighten it down. Sometimes if the peeps are made out of plastic, they'll break. I haven't had it actually happen to me since I've been cognizant and aware of where the peep is at in relation to that. So I mean, what we have right here is more than enough. Just give it a couple extra turns, and you'll kind of notice there's a point where it starts to get a little tight. You don't really want to overdo it or anything. And now what I'll do, if I can find it. So from the bottom side of her peep, okay, as it rests up against the string, let me show you here. Hopefully you guys can see that. But from the bottom side of her peep as it rests against the string, I will measure to where her center point is. And it looks like we have like 5 1/4 inches. So I'll just kind of keep that in mind. And then what I like to do is take, I don't have my silver Sharpie anymore. It died on me. I'm kind of upset about that. But we will mark her string here and here. because that's kind of where we know, you know, like we're covering over halfway. And then the rest of it's pretty obvious. We're going to take her D-loop off, so we're going to cut that off. And this side, make sure when you're using these blades that you're not carving down into the string. I was going to show you that on like the next step here. We get her soft knot off. Usually these soft knots, once you have the D-loop out of the way, you can just kind of grab a piece, hold it back out of the way, and then kind of unravel it. You guys may have seen in that video where I like to use the cool melt stuff for tying on soft knots. It seems to work pretty good. Like you see there, it's not so hard bonding on there that you have a hard time getting it off. But you'll notice right here, okay, so there's like some serving separation and stuff. This is where it was pretty worn out, more serving separation there. So probably a good idea that we're replacing this. Alright, so hopefully this view will work a lot better. I kind of changed up the view so you guys can kind of see a little bit more what I'm actually doing here. So when you run these things out, if you notice, if you look at the blade from the side, they're kind of double bevel sharpened. So if you're laying this blade flat, you're never gonna, you know, cut into your actual string. You just need to be kind of careful. So I like to start where there is some serving separation and just kind of do like a real light sawing motion back and forth while keeping that blade flat. Just until I get that serving to kind of start fuzzing out. Until you can get like a thumbnail or like a set of pliers or something on there and unravel it. So like what we have here. And I'll probably time lapse this part. This is like the most tedious, boring part of the whole process. But now you just basically unwind this. You can kind of spin it with your fingers here a little bit. And it kind of makes things a little bit easier. But getting this off, you have to get it off before you can put the next serving on there. Yeah, they split the string. We won't do that. Alright, now I'll show you how I set up the serving jig. Alright, so we have the string here, right? Darn it. The jig that I get's from October Mountain. It'll have these little discs on the side. You just kind of line them up on there. This main rod goes through. And then I just kind of start these little knurled knobs a little bit on one side and a little on the other. That way it can't fall out on you like it just did at the start of this video. And we're going to put it on there and tighten it down in the jig. Now, the tighter that you get those, the tighter this serving material is going to be, the spool, which is going to help you get a much tighter wrap on your ultimate, you know, when you're actually serving things up. So something to keep in mind. And then, so it's got these 3 bars, but you want to weave over the back side of one to the back side of the other, and then around the back again, and then through this little hole here in the bottom. So we'll weave that through. And then through there. Oops. And then around the back again. And now getting it through the hole is really not super difficult from this side. Just like that. Okay. And then I'll kind of tighten these down a little bit. That's about the tension that I like. So now this is set up, so we'll get you moved back over here and get the actual serving process started. Alright, so for getting this started, you can kind of see our little marks here, right here and here. So you guys may not be able to see those on camera. I'm sorry, it doesn't really pick up that much detail, I guess. But what you'll want to do to kind of get the ball rolling on this, let me take a little bit of this back. So you'll want to lay your serving material across, and then what I do is I pull a little bit of excess out, something that I can kind of hold on to, and then I will just, it's kind of an awkward thing to do, but kind of basically start like this. I'm trying to get you guys a view, so I'm having a hard time figuring out how I want to start this, but you'll basically want to serve over your loop. So I kind of pull past my mark a little bit, and then I start putting some wraps on by hand. And this is like one of the more difficult parts, I guess, because you want to keep this as tight as you possibly can. So we'll get a couple wraps on there until it kind of holds itself in place. And then I pull this down, okay? It's over about there. And then retract this. This is like super, super awkward to do around the camera. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of holding on to the spool so it can't unravel on me while I'm kind of wrapping these loops or these windings around the string. And you'll see that it kind of gets itself, you know, nice and tight on there. And then when we get to where we're happy with where that's at, go ahead and tighten these knobs down. And then what I do is I hold on to this kind of back here a little bit, and I just let the jig take over for me. So after making a couple wraps, we'll make sure that it's kind of nice and tight on there, and then we just start winding. This twisting stuff gets kind of annoying, so I'll get like a good portion of it kind of wrapped on there. Do like 3 or 4, and then I'll untwist this. And then do 3, 4 again. Probably gonna want to loosen that up just a skosh. Because what's happening right now is it's twisting the actual string. You got to kind of play with it a little bit sometimes until you can just get the ball rolling. There we go. Now we're getting some windings on there. Once you've got a few of them on there, then you can kind of give it just another little bit of a partial turn. That's what we're after. Perfect. Once you get it started, it's pretty smooth going from there. Now you just keep making your windings, and what happens is this just kind of follows along where the previous wrap was. And you'll quit having your starter, like your tag in there, moving around on you a bunch. You just keep wrapping her up. So, and you can see how much tension's on there, right? Because like all that weight, it's kind of supporting itself. You know, the jig on the offside, that's kind of what you're after. And then once I'm kind of about halfway to where I want to be, that's when I'll generally cut this tag end off. I don't actually leave it under there like a lot of your strings come with. It's just something I prefer doing. We just keep wrapping her up. Okay, so we're getting towards the end here. There's our mark. I'm going to show you guys the next step. All right, so when you start getting close, this is where it becomes a challenge. So this is like finger crimp central, but you pull a good chunk of that off there. I know you can't see it on camera right now. We're gonna end up getting probably like a foot worth of material. And then you want to hold this tight, because if you start letting slack in here, it's gonna feed its way up. So we've been winding around this way, right? From this side of the camera, it would be a clockwise wrap. So because we've been wrapping back like towards us from the bottom over the top, you're going to create a loop, okay? We want to keep wrapping that direction, but you're going to start wrapping inward from the other side. So we have our loop, it's right here. You want to wrap towards the center. Nine, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, once you have those wraps, you're going to pull this back towards where you were serving from. You're going to keep it pinned under there, and you need to pull tight, okay? But you're going to keep wrapping this loop around and make sure that you're pulling your loops forward from the direction where you came. Five. Okay, until you have this here. And now you pull your slack. Alright, now once you've got that handled, you're going to hold here, and what I do is I just put a couple twists on this. You want to keep where you've been wrapping tight. And you're going to pull your slack. Pull forward, just like that, you've got it finished. Okay. Now we'll cut this a little shorter. And now finish that off with a lighter. Just like that. Alright, sorry about that. I had to do a quick battery change. So back with you guys, but basically you just saw me burn this down, you know, so we're good to go. So if you guys remember, we were at 5 1/4 inches from being centered from the bottom of her peep, okay? And it's important because you want to get the measurements the same. You don't do anything with this knob. You don't do anything to tighten or loosen the tension from when you've actually taken that measurement, because it is going to change things. But this is going to be, you know, pretty much a real good starting point. So we're going to mark at 5 1/4, which it's just below right there. So I can see a little mark on that string there, so we know that's going to be the center of her D-loop. And so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the serving portion of it done. Now we'll loosen the tension off of here. And what I like doing, this is why I don't take her bow out of the press or anything, or a bow when I'm doing this, because it makes this part of it really easy. But we're going to pull this out, set that aside, going to unravel this. Now remember, we don't want our string to twist on us, right? So we're going to hold on to the loop, and we are going to go straight to the cam with it.
Enhance.
So don't let this twist or untwist on you. The loop's all we really care about. We're going to put this guy on. Make sure it's back on the track of the cam. And same thing here. Let's see, I'm going to need to move you guys here. You're not missing anything.
Enhance. Enhance.
I'm just taking the string off of the string jig here. And same thing, making sure that this guy's not going to twist on us. And we're going to put it back on. Good, great, awesome, perfect, fantastic. Let's go. And take the jig off, get it out of the way. And now we're going to hold up on the string. We're going to make sure that everything is good to go. No cables slipped off of anything. And we're going to let the tension back out. Just like that. So now we need to get a new D-loop and knocking points put on there. So we'll get set up for that and we'll make it a thing. Alright, so welcome back. Yes, it's a new day. It's the following morning. I ran out of desire to want to do this yesterday, but anyway, in a previous video when we were finding our center shot, I told you guys I would show you a way to do this where you didn't have to have any fancy levels or anything, right? You just need to know basically that your bow itself is level while being in the vise, and I know from previous experience because I mounted it and I may know about stuff like that this is. So this string has to be perfectly level. That's what you're concerned with. And what you're going to want to do is, I've already loosened this up, this little, they call it like a football clamp or whatever, even though it's not shaped like a football. But basically our rest is in the up position, okay? So what we're going to do in order to know where to tie the D-loop and our knocking points, we're going to take one of these arrows and we're actually going to, and you can see I've already marked on the string, just that was what we measured yesterday, but where the midway point should be based on where it was at beforehand. But we're going to knock an arrow, and what we're going to do is we're going to move this arrow and let gravity take over, but we're going to move this arrow until we can see it being right through the center of the burger button hole, okay, which, let me go ahead and bring this down actually. We can see right now that it is not, okay, so my measurement wasn't quite as precise as I thought it was going to be. But you also are going to want it basically just kind of barely touching your wrist. So we're going to slide this down just a skosh, let it finish bouncing around, and we're going to look at it from the top side here. And we can see that we're really close, but we still have a little bit of room to go. So I'm going to slide her down just a skosh more. And right there, we are on it. Okay, so right where it's just barely making contact with your rest. Now you also want to verify that it's through the center of the burger button hole, and I'm trying to get you guys the best view to see things from where I can. I think right there should probably be it, but you can see we're right through the center of the burger button hole. So where that's at is going to be our new knocking points for this, so we still continue to get perfect arrow flight, because remember, that's the #1 most important factor. So now that we have that, you can see that I'm basically just below my previous mark that I made. So I'm going to grab my Sharpie again, and we're going to make them work just below it. Now keep in mind, we don't want basically to have our soft knots be exactly up against this, because as we draw the string back, the angle, instead of being flat, it's going to be really acute. And what's going to happen is you're going to get knock pinch, and it's going to give you weird, crazy things with your arrows. We don't want that. Oh yeah, you can see just how much nicer that comes off there. But we're trying to avoid that. So when I tie on these soft knots, I'm probably gonna stop to maybe like one serving thread, you know, away from that on the lower side. I generally, you know, will tie one on the upper side just temporarily. That way, you know, the knots and stuff for the D-loop, they'll actually kind of bind themselves into where we want them to be. And then I generally take off the stop or the soft knot on the top side, just because, you know, when you have perfect knock fit like what we have here, as far as like the knock and how hard it pinches on the center serving, gravity is going to take over. And so when she draws, the weight of the knock is going to cause it to come down, and we're going to want it to rest on that lower soft knot. Don't really need to have one on the top side. So I generally just end up taking that off later. So let's go ahead and pull out, even though I just put it away. But we're going to pull out some more serving thread. But we're going to pull off, you know, probably, it doesn't have to be a whole crazy amount, but I do like to have enough to work with here. Probably about 18 inches or so of serving thread. And we're just going to take it and we're going to rub it through this cool melt. And the reason I like doing this is when we go to introduce a little bit of heat, just this little bit of cool melt that's on here is going to end up kind of, for one, it gives you something to hold on to while you're tying this up, because this stuff's pretty slick. But also too, when we heat up the corner of the blade and we touch it to there, it's going to cause that cool melt to kind of melt into the serving thread, just to keep these things from sliding. So I'm going to move you guys kind of over here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I hope that that's on camera because the screen went black. It looks like you'll probably be able to see. And so we're going to start just below where we want it to go. So here's the way that you kind of tie these knots, or at least the way that I do them. Leave one side longer than the other when you start this, just because, you know, you're going to cut these, and you would go from basically having things being, you know, not too long on both sides to being not long enough on either, and you end up needing to cut another piece of serving thread to tie your next stopper knot on. But before you really kind of dress this down, this is just a basic, you know, one knot, kind of an overhand knot there. We're going to go just below that there, so like one serving thread's worth of separation. Okay, and now we're going to go to the other side and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to go, come on now, one. Now we're tying down away from the first knot that we tied. Okay, and we're going to do it again. I like to do like 3 or 4. So on the third one here, instead of just going through once, we're actually going to go through 2 times. And you want to have this knot, if you're going to do 3, you want to have this be on the back side of basically where the knot's going to be. Now here's, because we tied that twice, we sent it through there, this knot's like extra wide, so I'll just cross them like this, and I will go and just pull them nice and tight. You're going to have a little bit of like buildup of a knot here, okay? That's all right. And then on the same side again, we're just going to do a single, and that makes a square knot. And just like that. That's all you really have to do. Now we'll take our blade, leave probably, I'd say, a little less than like a 1/16 of an inch of material on there for like a tag end, so when we melt that down, there's something to kind of ball up. And now we're going to do the same thing kind of above. Now this one, because we're going to take it off of there, I will tie this, you know, basically a little closer on that line. Okay, so like there. And what you'll see here is, so it's kind of hard to explain, but you guys will probably see for demonstration purposes here. But this knock, okay, so these knocks, I really like these. They're kind of more narrow than a lot of your other ones. But right here, to have like an extra, I would say maybe like 1/2 to 1/3 of a knock's worth of, you know, play there is going to prevent string pinch. Now she's got a real short draw length, So I mean, we could get away with having this much closer than what we would do for like mine, which is honestly only like 2.5 inches longer. But people that have really, really long draw lengths, you're going to want maybe a little bit more space in there, because keep in mind, you know, as we're drawing this, that angle is going to change. It's going to get really, really tight. There. That was a little bigger than I wanted it to be, so now we'll take a look. That right there is perfect. So we've got, if I had to approximate that, I'd say like maybe a little bit over 1/16 of an inch. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for. And so we'll pull that tight, and we'll go to the other side. Tie just a single knot. Go just to the upper side, because basically this side of the bow is the top cam, this side's the bottom cam, so we're tying away from where the nock is going to be. And same thing here, go 1, because this is the third one, and 2, and pull it tight, cross it, and pull it tight. And then just do a single overhand knot, pulling the other side through to make a square knot to terminate this. Just like that. And now we will cut these guys off. Now, you got to be careful at this point, because we don't want to melt the serving that we put on there, like the actual serving that we just redid. So take the string, turn it up. Don't go crazy with this. Get the lighter somewhat close. Let it do its job. Don't be in a rush for this. Okay, just like that. Same thing with the lower one. Perfect. Now this is what I was talking about with getting... I have a call coming in, hold on. Alright, sorry about that. But now here's what I was talking about. So with the blade, I'm actually going to use this torch. So you don't have to be super crazy with this. You don't want this thing like glowing red hot or anything, but we're going to put some heat on this. And if you start feeling the heat transfer working up the blade, you've gotten this too hot. But we're basically just going to stick this on that soft knot and kind of apply it around a little bit. And what this is doing is that cool melt that we put on there, it's kind of warming it up and having it kind of bind with the serving thread. Now, it's not enough, as you guys saw when I took the previous ones off there, that it's going to be impossible to remove, but it is just enough to prevent these from sliding. Okay, and so now for D-loop. Alright, so now on D-loop. So my wife is choosing to go with like an orange and black and like turquoise color scheme here, which I'm honestly a major fan of. It's looking really good. I can't wait for her to hurry up and shoot through these strings so we can get her like an actual string that matches that color scheme. I think it's really going to make it pop. But anyway, so when you tie your D-loop, we want the D-loop to be towards the center, but we want it to cross on opposing sides. So basically it would be like this, right? Now, if you have them both on one side, what's going to happen is when you draw, you're going to kind of cause the string to twist. And it also kind of promotes that serving wanting to twist on you, at least in my experience. So what we're going to do is, you know, like we follow the wraps. So I basically wound down from this direction. Okay, and I went in, let's see here. So I went in a clockwise, so over the top of the string direction. So we're going to want to tie this to do exactly the opposite of that. And what it kind of allows that to do is it pulls, it's hard for me to explain, but if I tie it this way on the top, it's going to basically cause these wraps to twist together, which is going to help prevent more separation from where the nock is. So we're going to go from the back side, because it's going opposite the direction of where we wrapped the serving. Going to come around the front side and then back through, just like that. Okay, and little pro tip here, if you orient this knot to be kind of in line with the peep. So she's got a little bit of peep rotation. It's kind of basically, if you're staring at it from the back side of the bow, it's kind of twisting to the right. So we want to line the loop itself to be directly in line with the peep. So it'll be kind of tilted back this direction, that way a little bit. That way, as she comes to full draw, it kind of helps pull that peep in line to where she can see through it. And what I do, because any slack that you leave in these knots right now is going to make for a larger D-loop, and we both really like a nice tight D-loop. So I'm going to kind of push this in a little bit. I'm going to pull one end, and I'm going to pull the other end. Okay, so we've taken a fair amount of slack out of that. It doesn't look like much, but you'll really notice it when you go to set this D-loop with the D-loop pliers. Now we're going to cross over the string, okay? Come around, just like we did on the other side, except for now the knot is on, it's tying from around the opposite side, okay? So we're basically, if you look over the top, the D-loop is crossing the string. Come around and hook back through. I'm sure there's somebody like talking about some other YouTuber that they've seen ties a D-loop on there with wasting less material. You know, if I owned a pro shop or something, I'd probably be a little more concerned with it. I would probably do this almost every day. I don't do this every day. This is just the system that I use works really, really well for me. And I'm honestly only losing a couple inches worth of material. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pull on one and pull on the other, because we want to get as much slack out of that as possible. And now before I set this, what we're going to do is we're going to cut these and we're going to melt them down. The reason I do that is because we want basically these knots to stay where they are, and this loop is going to be, it's just the way that I do it, it works out perfect for the amount of length that we like. So you're going to leave, I would say, probably around 1/4 inch or so, maybe a little bit more of material there. And we're going to fuzz this guy out. Now really take the time to puff this guy out, because we want a nice fat glob on there, something that's like impossible to pull itself through. Okay. And now with the lighter, so this part's important. You don't want this to actually catch fire, because if you do, it kind of creates bubbles. This gets black and it gets brittle. So we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. But we're going to introduce some heat to this. Started getting ready to catch fire there. And they'll smush it. And smush it. Now we're going to let this cool off a little bit. And because this is so tight, right, I'm never going to get these guys in there. So I have a set of really, really fine pliers here. And we're going to stick her in there. Just like that. Now we can get these guys in there, these fathead Freds. And really give her the beans. Perfect. And there you have it. replaced our center serving, got new soft knots, got a D-loop tied on there. She's straight through on her center shot. And look at that. No knock pinch. Thanks for watching.